The first notes slipped through my fingers and scattered across the polished floor like rainwater. They splashed without order or shape, my mind scrambling for the melody I'd rehearsed 100 times. The music jury sat across from me in a straight, silent line, black-suited bodies, closed mouths, pensive eyes. My vision rippled with tears I was too proud to let fall. I heard a cough. The tall, angular man at the left end, a composer, I think, shrugged. Writing something with the smallest smoke. "Begin again, please," the head of the jury said, voice clipped. I tried. My hands shook. The piano keys blurred, and whatever tune I managed to conjure was stiff, messy, small. Shame pressed down, hot and asphyxiating. Every imperfect note landed with the force of a slap. My recital was over within minutes, but the humiliation stayed, sticky and cold, as I rose and bowed. There was no applause, just the polite gray faces, shuffling papers. I kept my head down on the subway home, knees drawn in, shoulders hunched beneath my school uniform. Still, the city would not leave me alone. Tokyo's weight pressed from all angles, the bodies, the neon, the unyielding grid of expectation humming beneath every face. I tried to remind myself that it was only a performance, not a measurement of my worth. But the whispered words of my mother at breakfast earlier, "What is all this for anyway, Rui?" returned to burn in my cheeks. When I finally stepped through the sliding door into the apartment, I barely had time to kick off my shoes before my sister began. "What happened? Did you embarrass yourself again?" she asked, sprawled across the couch in her track jacket, phone alight with a friend's group chat. She was 4 years younger, always athletic, always charming, a running star at school, basking in endless parental pride. "Mind your business," I muttered, shutting my bedroom door before I could hear her laugh. Dinner that night tasted of medicine as my father's silence stretched across the table. My mother set down a bowl of miso soup in front of me with unnecessary force. "Did you remember all your notes today?" she asked, slicing through the silence and my hope that we could all just eat. I nodded, because it was easier than telling the truth. Yuki, my sister, snickered. "She probably forgot her own name up there. You should have heard the neighbors last week. Mom Rue talking to herself at the sewing machine again. Like she's famous or something." She grinned at me, her perfect teeth gleaming. At this, my mother let out the tiniest huff. "Sewing? Again?" She turned her gaze on me. "Rui, how many times? That is not a future. Dreaming about clothes like some child? What use is that? Tokyo isn't for fantasy. It's for grown-ups. You are almost 18. You wasted years on piano. You want to waste more?" My father didn't look up from his bowl. "She'll see eventually," he muttered, more to his miso than anyone else. After dinner, I sat on my bedroom floor, knees against my chin. My sewing machine waited for me in the corner, beside the cheap plastic table lamp I begged for in middle school, the one with tiny stars cut into the shade, casting spinning constellations on the walls. I pulled out my sketchbook, rough pencil lines, sudden bursts of color, frantic notations in the margins. My sketches were worlds. I lost myself in them. Yet tonight, their magic had dulled, the outlines heavy with the jury's silence, my family's laughter. Still, I kept drawing late into the night, my defiance brittle but real. If they couldn't see what I saw, maybe I would simply have to become undeniable. Graduation blurred by in a parade of obligatory snapshots and forced congratulations. Yuki got a bouquet and a new pair of running shoes. I received a stiff handshake from my father and an awkward smile from my homeroom teacher. At the after party, someone passed me a drink and said, "Your music club, right?" I smiled and nodded, not bothering to correct them. Nobody, not even my closest friends, really knew about the patterns stacked beneath my bed, the slow, careful way I transformed fabric into something almost beautiful. University applications became our family battleground. My mother circled Tokyo University's brochures like a hawk. My father never mentioned design once. For weeks, I sat through lectures about accounting, medicine, law, respectable things. At night, I researched fashion institutes, scrolling through galleries of outlandish garments that set my heart leaping. When I sent off a secret application to the Bunka Fashion College, nobody knew. When I got the acceptance letter, my world split open. At dinner, I set the envelope beside the rice cooker. "I got into Bunka," I said. Fear clawed at my throat, wanting to bury those words forever. My father's hand stilled in mid-air. My mother's mouth pressed into a thin line. "For sewing?" "For design," I replied. Silence. Then, "No, we already talked about this. If you want to try university again next year—" "I don't want university. I want Bunka." "No." My mother's voice was final, sharp. "We will not pay for your hobbies. Grow up, Rui. You're done with these foolish games." I felt my face tremble. But for the first time in my life, I remembered the feeling in my hands when a garment came together. I remembered the breathless power just before the last hem was fixed, the moment a flat idea became a living thing. Each line, each stitch, proof that I could conjure something from nothing. "I'll pay." My voice was small, but real. "I'll get scholarships. I'll work. I'll do it myself." My father didn't answer. He just kept eating, slower now, as if perhaps the right flavor would wash this problem away. Spring came and went. I cobbled together tuition from a patchwork of scholarships, part-time jobs, and luck. I worked as a convenience store cashier, then as a late-night dishwasher, then finally as a seamstress's assistant in a cramped Shibuya shop. Each time I showed up, I promised myself I was building something nobody could take. Fashion school was a baptism of humiliation and awe. The first weeks were agony, my clothes stunted, my ideas childish, next to classmates who spoke with the blunt confidence that comes from having been believed in. Yet I persisted. I stitched until my fingers bled, learned draping from YouTube tutorials at 3 a.m., lined my tiny apartment with sketches and failed muslins. There were setbacks, a showpiece crumpled in the rain, a model who quit at the last minute. A teacher who said, "Perhaps you are too traditional, Rui. Where is your vision?" The old shame returned, dark and dense, coaxing me to quit. My family's laughter haunted the silence of my late nights. Dreaming about clothes like a child, I remembered. Each time I was tempted to accept that, I remembered the sunlight on silk, the trembling beauty of threads knotting together in my hands. 4 years trickled by. I graduated barely. I got lucky, landing a position at a mid-tier Tokyo atelier. Most days I cleaned up after real designers or stitched endless samples nobody would ever see. Some nights I crept into the studio after hours, using scraps from my own patterns, faster, stranger, bolder than anything I dared before. Recognition came gradually. My first runway moment, a chaotic basement show where my neon kimono jackets drew bored glances and 2 lines in a local blog. I kept at it, sewing between subway rides, pitching at cafes, borrowing money I couldn't really afford. Twice, almost, I quit. But eventually someone noticed a buyer for a department store in Shibuya whose laugh boomed as she held my hand-embroidered coat. "Finally," she declared, "someone doing something electric." She placed an order for 4 more. It wasn't a fairy tale. I still paid rent late. But suddenly, doors cracked open. Magazines asked for interviews. Stylists borrowed my pieces for pop stars, and once, just once, I saw my name in tiny print beneath a spread in Vogue Japan. Sales built slowly. Then, quickly, I signed a lease for a once derelict studio and for the first time placed a brass nameplate by the door,